Good morning. How are you? Well, it's going to be a hot one. It's in the 80s now. It's supposed to go up more. One value of getting out early in the day when you can. The Hill has been somewhat active in these hot days of summer. The bill to reform voting rights, the John Lewis bill, one of its principal provisions, as you know, is to correct or to respond to the Supreme Court in the 2013 decision, in which they said in those states where there'd been past discrimination, and there's this pre-clearance provision, that is, if a state wants to change how it conducts voting, it has to first be cleared by a judge of the Justice Department. It struck that down because it said it hadn't been reconsidered in a long time by Congress. So from 2013 until yesterday, there was no bill that modified these pre-clearance procedures. So that's all very good, and that is exciting, and the bill is very good. And Manchin said he was for it, but here's where it sticks in the craw. The bill is only approved by the House. It has to be approved by the Senate. And Manchin, who's so strong on this bill, or so he said, will have to vote to end cloture, even if it's narrowly tailored to this question of the Voting Rights Act, which perhaps he could do. But we have Sinema, the other senator in the Democratic caucus, who has been saying uniformly that she is against changing the cloture vote because she thinks it's democratic. How a supermajority is democratic instead of a majority is beyond me, particularly when the Senate is already tilted in favor of 2 senators for every state, no matter what the population is, as compared to, say, California or New York. So what can we expect? Well, it's a drama that will work its way out, but it almost requires a couple of Republicans to get faith and to join Democrats and vote against cloture. Is that possible? Highly unlikely, but conceivable, because I said it, and possible. Now, the second bill that we're concerned about is the infrastructure bill, and particularly the $3.5 trillion bill that requires budget reconciliation. And the House, after Democrats had a food fight between the moderates and the liberals that are 100 strong in their caucus, they passed almost really a resolution, an agreement to agree that by September the 27th, the Congress would bring up the other bill and this bill, that is the so-called bipartisan bill. Without the change in cloture, and I'm sure by now you're all as up to date about it as anybody else, including law students and law professors, without cloture, we're not going to make the advances we need. And tick-tock, September, I mean, we're coming to this year's election, we're coming up to the midterms. So that's really discouraging. While we're talking about this, Pennsylvania, the Republicans in the legislature are proposing to have hearings on how unfair their elections were. So you see that the two drifts. Republicans are committed to a strategy of running down the honesty of our elections to justify saying they need these reforms, which are to distort the election process and tamp down the vote of those that the Republicans can't get to support them. Pretty unbelievable. Now, let's take a couple of other issues. Here in Virginia, our governor says, I want you to mask in schools, and issued basically a requirement. And we have Chap Peterson, who's a representative in the General Assembly. And years ago, I thought he was, progressive, which is a synthetic liberal or a liberal. And he's going around writing to all the jurisdictions saying, nah, you don't have to do that. I don't know, he's apparently a Democrat. I can't figure these people out. It's like they drink a tonic from the wrong fountain, and then a horn forms in the center of their head, and they get a third eye, and they see things that none of us can see or understand. That is, stupid things. So I guess you call it stupid ears and stupid horns. I saw a statement about what's going on in Afghanistan, and the statement was that Biden should have expected chaos. Now, does anybody ever analyze what they say? Okay, I expect chaos. Now, if I have chaos, unpredictable currents of things I didn't anticipate, that's chaos, isn't it? If I anticipate it, I can plan for it. But how do I anticipate chaos? It's ridiculous. So it's a way to be critical without being specific and saying exactly what it is that you should plan for, other than the indefinable chaos. Language appears to be the first death in the public debate by which we would make decisions. But if we can't understand each other and what we say doesn't make sense, we don't have very many advances. So what you really have when you say you should have expected chaos is people who already are inclined, say Republicans, to look for ways to get bias out, and Trump or DeSantis or Cruz or Abbott, any of these guys instead are prepared to adopt any language even when it's nonsense garbage. Then there's a tiny story that bothers me of senseless destruction. Ospreys are these gorgeous little birds who sometimes eat the little fish because we have a couple, out of our small pond. And they were attached to a light in Maryland, and they removed these fledgling ospreys. I think fledgling applies to small osprey birds. And what do? Did they hand them to a society that could take care of them? Did they nurture them somewhere nearby until they'd finish their work? No, they killed them. This is what the problem is with society. Everything's expendable. There's no value for anything. We don't just need an education in this country of the 3 R's and critical thinking. We need to heighten the nation's emotional IQ to realize that life of a bird is substantial. I didn't write it, but somewhere in the New Testament or the Old Testament, if a bird falls, he knows about it. Well, I don't believe that, but I know about it, you know about it, and the person who is not sensitive to life of every sort misunderstands the fact that we really all are in this together. You compromise this area where I am. You take away the values of oxygen here, the pleasure of walking on a road. You're affecting life. You start killing characters in these woods, you start affecting your life elsewhere. You spoil these creeks that are nearby. You spoil those, you spoil the water. You can't drink it. You can't bathe in it. You can't take your kids walking on a trail somewhere. So, anyhow, hope against hope. There are more of us. But it seems easier to break something up and to treat it badly than it does to preserve and protect it, including our democracy. So, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.